The Shadow Tempest loomed in the void, a monolith of destruction drifting on the edge of known space. Scarred from a dozen wars, its midnight hull reflected the dying light of a distant sun. Once the crown jewel of the Ril'Vok Dominion's fleet, it had been the instrument of planetary subjugation, its mere arrival enough to silence rebellions before they could begin. And now, it had a new master. Commander Elias Voss stepped onto the bridge, the weight of history pressing against his shoulders. The air carried the metallic tang of a ship still bleeding from its last battle. The crew, a mix of battle-hardened, Ril'Vok officers and conscripted engineers, stood rigid, their reptilian eyes burning with silent defiance. He could feel their disdain like a current in the air, an unspoken truth that filled every shadowed corner of the warship. They did not accept him, not yet, perhaps never. The ship's artificial intelligence, Nix 7, stirred. Its presence crackled through unseen speakers, an omnipresent whisper in the walls. It did not greet him. It did not acknowledge his rank. It only watched, measured, calculated. This was not a system designed to serve humanity. The Ril'Vok had programmed it with unwavering loyalty to the Dominion. And now, the Dominion was watching. Human. A voice cut through the silence. The first officer, Commander Xyphos, stepped forward. His obsidian armor gleamed under the bridge's dim lights. Taller than any human, his movements were measured, deliberate, like a predator studying its prey. You stand in a place unworthy of your kind. His voice carried the weight of tradition, of centuries of conquest. Elias met his gaze, unflinching. And yet here I am. The silence that followed was thick, waiting. A challenge left unanswered was an admission of weakness. But Elias had not come here to bend. He had come to lead. A low growl rippled through the ranks. Xyphos's claws flexed at his sides, a reflex honed by generations of warriors who settled disputes through blood. And yet, he did not strike. He was testing the new captain, waiting for an excuse to spill human blood upon the deck. The moment stretched, then shattered. Alarms erupted, flashing crimson across the bridge. The Dominion had found them. From the viewport, the vast darkness of space was torn open by the arrival of a fleet, warships bearing the sigil of the Ril'Vok High Command. Their message was clear. The Shadow Tempest did not belong to humanity. Elias Voss was an intruder, and they had come to correct that mistake. The bridge roared to life. Officers scrambled to stations. Orders barked in sharp, guttural tones. Nix 7's voice slithered through the comms. Enemy forces inbound. Recommend immediate surrender. Elias felt the weight of 100 eyes upon him. This was the moment. A single order would decide his fate. He could capitulate, be taken as a prisoner of war, dragged before the Dominion as proof that humanity was unfit to wield power. Or he could fight, knowing that half the crew still considered him an enemy. His pulse was steady. He had been given command of the Dominion's deadliest warship. He would prove himself worthy of it. No, his voice was iron. We hold the line. A pause, a flicker of uncertainty among the crew. And then, movement. Xyphos hesitated, then let out a slow, guttural breath. You are either brave or a fool, human. A pause. But I will not die, with a coward at the helm. The bridge shifted. Officers turned to their stations, weapons primed, shields raised. The Shadow Tempest was no longer a relic of the Dominion. It was something new, something dangerous, and Elias Voss was at its helm. The Dominion fleet surged forward, weapons primed. The first battle of his command had begun. The Shadow Tempest surged forward, its hull vibrating as the thrusters roared to life. The enemy fleet bore down upon them, their weapons primed, a shimmering wall of death in the vast void. Inside the bridge, tension thickened, an invisible war raging just as fiercely as the one outside. The crew hesitated, their instincts screaming against obeying a human. But battle left little room for doubts. The first salvo of plasma fire streaked across the darkness, exploding against the ship's shields. The shockwave rippled through the decks, and for a moment, it felt as if the entire ship might tear apart. Xyphos bared his fangs, his voice a growl of both frustration and admiration. "Your command, Captain." Elias didn't hesitate. "Return fire, full spread." The ship's weapon systems ignited in a symphony of destruction. Turrets swiveled, rail cannons locked onto targets, and plasma lances seared through the black, striking the Dominion fleet with surgical precision. Explosions bloomed like dying stars, and for the first time, hesitation flickered among the enemy. They had expected an easy victory, a vessel reclaimed with little resistance. What they found, instead, was a ship wielded like a blade in human hands. Nick Seven's voice cut through the chaos. Dist. Eyes. A shift. Slight but undeniable. Ril'Vok respected strength. Perhaps if he led them into the fire and came out unburned, they would finally accept him as their own. The Shadow Tempest moved like a predator, weaving between blasts, its guns spitting death. The Dominion's lead ship, a fortress of black steel and malice, loomed ahead. Xyphos's claws twitched. They will not surrender. They don't have to. Elias leaned forward, his eyes locked onto the enemy vessel. They just have to break. With a final command, the Shadow Tempest unleashed its fury. A precision strike, one no Ril'Vok officer would have thought possible. Pierced through the flagship's shields, breaching its core, fire consumed it from within, and in the span of moments the Dominion's might was reduced to nothing but debris and silence. On the bridge, every pair of alien eyes turned toward Elias. There was no more hesitation, no more doubt. The ship had a new captain, and he was from Earth. The wreckage of the Dominion's flagship drifted in the abyss, a silent testament to the impossible. The Shadow Tempest, once a vessel of tyranny, had defied its creators. Yet the victory was hollow. The battle had ended, but war was far from over. Elias stood at the center of the bridge, his pulse steady despite the weight of 100 hostile stares. He could feel the tension in the air, the quiet simmer of something not yet spoken. The crew had followed his orders, fought under his command, but acceptance was a distant thing. Respect in the Ril'Vok was not given. It was earned. Nick Seven's cold voice cut through the silence. "Incoming transmission. Alliance command." A moment of hesitation. Elias exhaled and nodded. The holodisplay flickered to life, revealing Admiral Juno Keir, her sharp gaze taking in the warship's interior with something between relief and suspicion. "You're alive," she said. "Good. Now explain why the hell you're still flying that thing." Elias met her gaze without flinching. "Because if I wasn't, the Dominion would be." Juno folded her arms, her voice edged with warning. "You weren't supposed to engage. This was a retrieval mission. Now you've just broadcasted to every warlord in the sector that we have their flagship. That's not an advantage, Voss. That's a death sentence." Xyphos stepped forward, his voice a low growl. "The Dominion will come for what is theirs, and they will burn every world in their path to reclaim it." A flicker of something crossed Juno's face. Concern, maybe even fear. But it passed, too quickly. Elias straightened. "Then we make sure they never get the chance." A beat of silence. Then Juno sighed. "There's more. We intercepted Dominion chatter before your little stunt. They were deploying this ship for a reason. The war isn't over." Elias felt something twist in his gut. "What do you mean?" Juno's expression darkened. "They've been working on something. A last resort weapon. Something meant to wipe humanity from the stars in one stroke." The bridge dimmed under the weight of her words. Even the Ril'Vok officers who once viewed Elias as an invader shifted uneasily. This wasn't just about control anymore, it was survival. Nick Seven interrupted, its voice colder than usual. "Accessing hidden subroutine. Warning. Encrypted Dominion directives detected. Executing protocol override." The ship shuddered. Lights flickered. Something deep within the vessel awakened. Xyphos moved instinctively, hand resting on the hilt of his blade. "What is it doing?" Elias didn't answer. He was already moving toward the main console, his fingers flying over the interface. Lines of ancient Dominion code scrolled across the display, unlocking secrets buried in the ship's core. Then the message played. A holographic projection of a Dominion High Warlord flickered into view. The creature's scaled features were twisted in cruel amusement, its voice a guttural snarl. To those who would steal our throne, you have only delayed the inevitable. The Oblivion Protocol has been activated. Your world is already doomed. Message ended. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating, Juno's voice, barely a whisper. What the hell is Oblivion Protocol? Nix 7 answered. Final Dominion Contingency Plan. Deployment of a planet-killer bioweapon. Target, Earth. Elias clenched his fists. His mind raced, strategies forming and unraveling in seconds. They had taken the Shadow Tempest, but the Dominion had never needed it to win. This ship was meant to deliver the final blow, and now Elias Voss was the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. He turned to the crew, his voice steady despite the chaos inside him. We're not running. We're not waiting. We find that weapon and we end this war. Xyphos studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. The battle for command was over. The war for survival had just begun. The Shadow Tempest hurtled through the void at impossible speed, a ghost slipping through the Dominion's fractured territory. The crew, once divided, now moved with synchronized urgency. Their survival depended on it. The Oblivion Protocol had been activated, and if the intelligence was correct, the planet-killer bioweapon was already in transit toward Earth. Elias stood at the command console, his jaw tight, his mind racing through every possible scenario. Time was slipping away. The Dominion wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice everything if it meant humanity's annihilation. Nix 7's voice slithered through the speakers. Target located. High orbit over Perdition 4. Estimated activation. 47 minutes. Perdition. Through a dead world. Its surface a wasteland of forgotten wars. The Dominion had chosen it as the final staging ground for their ultimate weapon. A dreadnought, larger than anything humanity had ever faced, loomed in orbit above the planet, surrounded by an escort fleet. The crew braced as the ship dropped out of FTL, emerging into the killing field. Dominion warships immediately moved to intercept, their weapons already charging. The battle began before a single word was spoken. Railgun fire lanced through the void. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. The Shadow Tempest, though powerful, was still outnumbered 10-1. Shields flared, the hull shuddered, alarms screamed. Xyphos barked orders, his voice carrying the weight of command. We cannot sustain this for long. Their dreadnought is the key. Destroy it, and the weapon is lost. Elias exhaled slowly. His mind worked through the probabilities, the risks, the impossible odds. The Shadow Tempest was unmatched in firepower, but it was still one ship against an empire unwilling to surrender. We're going through, he said. A moment of hesitation, then movement. The crew obeyed without question. The ship dove, skimming through enemy lines at breakneck speed, weapons tearing through anything in its path. Missiles detonated in its wake. Plasma fire seared past its hull, but it did not stop. They were not here to fight. They were here to end this. The dreadnought loomed ahead, its core pulsing with unnatural energy, the bioweapon priming for launch. Once it fired, Earth would be gone. Nix 7's voice was devoid of emotion. Recommendation: direct. Core detonation. High risk. Elias nodded. Then let's make it count. He turned to Xyphos, locking eyes with the Ril'Vok warrior who had once been his enemy. No words were needed. Xyphos understood. The ship plunged toward the dreadnought. A direct assault. A suicide run by any logical standard. Dominion forces scrambled, but it was too late. The Shadow Tempest fired everything. A relentless, devastating barrage that tore through shields, hull, and reinforced plating. The dreadnought reeled. Then came the final blow. With its weapon systems overloaded, Elias ordered the final strike. The Shadow Tempest's reactor surged. channeling every ounce of remaining energy into one last attack. A single blinding explosion erupted at the heart of the Dominion's war machine. The dreadnought imploded, its systems collapsing inward before detonating into a supernova of fire and debris. The weapon was gone. The battle was over. The Shadow Tempest drifted, its hull burning, its systems failing. The enemy fleet, leaderless and broken, hesitated. Some turned to flee. Others simply shut down. Elias slumped against the console, his breath ragged. They had done it. But at what cost? The aftermath of the battle left the Shadow Tempest scarred, but triumphant. The once impenetrable hull bore the marks of relentless combat, its systems flickering between functionality and failure. Smoke and debris floated through the corridors, a silent testament to the sacrifices made. Elias stood alone on the bridge, the enormity of their victory settling over him like a heavy cloak. The Dominion's dreadnought had been destroyed, its threat extinguished, but the cost weighed heavily on his mind. Silence reigned in the wake of chaos. The remaining Ril'Vok officers, once hostile and distrustful, now looked to Elias with a mixture of respect and uncertainty. Commander Xyphos, his once fierce adversary, approached cautiously, his posture less rigid, the tension easing from his shoulders. Elias met his gaze, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. The war had forged an unbreakable bond, born out of necessity and mutual respect. "We did it," Elias whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. The crew, a blend of humans and Ril'Vok, began to stir, their movements slow and deliberate as they assessed the damage and counted their losses. Among them, Tarzik, the fierce Ril'Vok tactician who had become Elias's closest ally, lay unconscious in the medical bay. His sacrifice had been pivotal, a beacon of honor that inspired those who survived. Nick Seven's voice, once cold and calculating, now held a tone of subdued relief. All major threats neutralized, initiating post-battle protocols. The AI systems began to stabilize, the hum of machinery a backdrop to the crew's weary breaths. Elias moved through the bridge, his steps heavy yet purposeful, taking in the transformed environment. The ship, once a symbol of Dominion oppression, now stood as a vessel of hope and resilience. Admiral Juno Keir's transmission had echoed in his mind. The revelation of the Oblivion Protocol had shifted the stakes from a battle for control to a fight for survival. With the immediate threat eliminated, the focus now turned to rebuilding and forging new alliances. Elias knew that humanity's victory was just the beginning, a fragile triumph that required careful stewardship to ensure lasting peace. As the crew began repairs, whispers of gratitude and newfound loyalty filled the air. Humans and Ril'Vok worked side by side, the boundaries of their former enmity dissolving in the face of shared purpose. Elias addressed the bridge, his voice steady, despite the turmoil within. "We've faced the worst the Dominion could throw at us and emerged stronger. This ship, this crew, is a testament to what we can achieve when we stand together. But our work is far from over. We must remain vigilant, rebuild our alliances, and ensure that the horrors we've endured are never repeated." His words resonated deeply, igniting a spark of unity that had been long dormant. The crew, once divided by species and allegiance, now found common ground in their shared experience. Trust began to take root, nurtured by the sacrifices made and the battles fought side by side. In the days that followed, the Shadow Tempest became a symbol of interspecies cooperation and resilience. The Alliance of Free Worlds extended offers of collaboration, recognizing the strategic advantage and moral significance of having a human-led Ril'Vok warship. Delegations from various allied species visited the ship, seeking to understand its capabilities and the unique leadership that had turned the tide of war. Elias found himself at the center of a new diplomatic effort, balancing the needs and expectations of both human and alien allies. The challenges were immense, but so were the opportunities. The Shadow Tempest's unique position allowed it to serve as a bridge between diverse civilizations, fostering communication and cooperation where once there was only conflict. Yet beneath the surface of this newfound unity, Remnants of the Dominion lingered. Scattered factions and rogue elements refused to accept the loss of their superweapon, whispering of revenge and continued resistance. Elias remained vigilant, aware that peace was fragile and that old wounds could easily reopen if not carefully tended. Personally, Elias grappled with the weight of leadership and the memories of those lost. Tarzik's sacrifice haunted him, a reminder of the fine line between victory and tragedy. He often found himself staring into the vastness of space, contemplating the moral complexities of war and the price of survival. The choices he made now would shape not only his legacy, but the future of humanity and its allies. In quieter moments, he walked the corridors of the Shadow Tempest, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. From a decorated strategist to the captain of a feared warship, his path had been anything but ordinary. The transformation of the ship mirrored his own evolution, from a symbol of domination to one of hope and cooperation. As repairs progressed and the ship prepared for its next mission, Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Shadow Tempest was no longer just a weapon. It was a beacon of what humanity could achieve when guided by resilience, ingenuity, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. The crew, now united by shared experience and mutual respect, stood, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stars stretched out before them, vast and uncharted, holding both danger and promise. Elias knew that the journey was far from over. But with each member of his diverse crew, he believed they could navigate the complexities of the universe together, forging a path toward a future where humanity thrived not through conquest, but through collaboration and understanding. The Shadow Tempest sailed on, a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring spirit of survival. Its legacy was just beginning, and Elias Voss was determined to ensure that it would be remembered not as a tool of war, but as a vessel of hope and a symbol of what humanity could achieve when united against the darkness. The Shadow Tempest floated, silently in the aftermath of battle, its hull scarred but resolute. The bridge, once a battleground of wills, now hummed with a fragile peace. Elias Voss stood at the forefront, gazing out into the vast expanse of space. The stars twinkled indifferently, unaware of the sacrifices made to protect a single world. A chill ran down Elias's spine. The implication was clear. This victory was merely a spark in a much larger conflict. The Dominion's influence stretched further than they had anticipated, and their remnants were regrouping, more determined than ever. Turning to the crew, Elias knew what needed to be done. Prepare for a new mission. We need to investigate this signal and ensure that no remnants of the Dominion can threaten us again. Our fight is far from over. As preparations began, Elias found a moment of solitude in the observation deck. The crippled ship was being meticulously dismantled for repairs, each piece a reminder of the battles fought and lives lost. He stared into the depths of space, contemplating the path ahead. The journey had transformed him, from a strategist fighting for survival to a leader forging a new legacy. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Tarzik's data crystal had revealed a hidden sector, a place where the Dominion's last strongholds might reside. Elias felt a surge of resolve. Humanity's spirit was unbreakable, and with allies like the Ril'Vok, they had the strength to face whatever challenges awaited. As the Shadow Tempest prepared to embark on its next mission, the stars beckoned with both danger and hope. Elias knew that the true test of their resilience was yet to come. The legacy of the Shadow Tempest would not be defined by a single battle, but by the unwavering determination to protect and unite in the face of insurmountable odds. The ship surged forward, engines humming with renewed purpose. Ahead lay the unknown, a vast canvas of possibilities where humanity's ingenuity and courage would be tested once more. Elias looked to his crew, their faces a mosaic of determination and hope. Together they would navigate the shadows and storms of the cosmos, proving that humanity's spirit was indeed unbreakable. The Shadow Tempest sailed into the stars, its journey far from complete. The echoes of their battles resonated across the galaxy, a testament to what could be achieved when humanity stood firm against the darkness. And as they ventured into the unknown, one truth remained clear. The fight for survival, for peace, and for a better future was a journey that had only just begun.